So why don't you tell us very briefly, first of all, why is it called Girl Picture?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. In Finnish, it's actually called Girls, Girls, Girls. That's the direct translation.
Okay.
But why I couldn't title it that in English was all I could think of was neon signs going Girls, Girls, Girls.
XXX.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Girl Picture is an homage to a photographer, American photographer Justine Kurland, who makes these beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous, iconic-looking pictures of girls, and she has a series called Girl Pictures. But then I also thought that it was a good title for this film because, to me, this is essentially kind of like a portrait of these girls, or a portrait of girlhood. And then I also like the connotation to chick flick because, you know, with the Finnish title, it's a phrase that we use to shame girls in Finland, like, girls, 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 what have you done now? So that title takes back that phrase.
Yeah.
So Girl Picture in a way is kind of saying like, yeah, you can call these like chick flicks or girl movies or something. I don't care if you think it's like a bad term or, you know, like,
Right.
I'm proud of it. So.
Yeah. Great answer, right? That is something I had no idea we were going to go there. I love that. That was really good. Tell us also, though, where did you get close to, or how did you get so close to what teen girls are like in contemporary Finland? How did you access that world
Of contemporary teenage girls.
Yeah.
Basically, through our own experiences, mine and the two writers who are both girls or women. One of them is 5 years younger than me, and the other is 10 years younger than me. So we kind of have, we're all older than the girls in the film, obviously. But it's based on our experience of adolescence and girlhood and growing up. We didn't specifically actually decided not to try and be contemporary in the sense that we would go to like a current high school and see how like the young folks are acting or something.
Right.
Because I thought that that's where I would go wrong, you know? So I never thought about it being like a teenage story or for a teen audience or anything like that. I wouldn't know how to make a teenage film. I was just trying to be true to the characters and just make a good film without thinking about how you would cater to like a younger audience or anything like that. So.
Is the fact that it's young lesbians in love, is that easily accessible in Finland? Has there been any pushback, or is everyone super happy about young lesbians in love?
I hope so. There hasn't been pushback, but it also doesn't get brought up in reviews nearly as much as in some international audiences. Like, for example, around the world, the film has been a lot to many LGBTQIA film festivals, whereas in Finland, I don't even know if there is an LGBTQIA festival, so it's not really angled that way. It's much more like a feminist film or a teen adolescent girl story, and that's been a really interesting difference in the conversation.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I was telling Alli before we came here, I think there might be other people in the audience who felt the way I did, and what I felt was I just wish that Ronka ended up having an orgasm. I mean, didn't you kind of hope that that was going to happen at the end? She would get her moment, yes?
Well, it felt really contemporary to me that her coming into herself was saying, I may not feel this way right now.
Right.
And that felt very modern, very of the moment to me.
You perfectly verbalized the reason why she doesn't.
Yeah.
And also, if she did, we would then have to choose who she would have it with. The only way I could see her have it is without a partner. And that I would think is okay for the story. Like but we also wanted to leave it open whether she is asexual, demisexual, or just not figured it out yet. So that's why she doesn't. But I agree with you. It would kind of be satisfying.
It would be kind of satisfying, exactly. Yes, sir.
Yes. So far, I've seen two other Finnish movies this year. One's called Hatching. The other's called Compartment Number 6. Have you seen any of those two? Hatching or Compartment Number 6?
I can't watch Hatching because I can't watch horror.
It's not really horror. It's more suspense thriller.
It's way too scary for me.
Okay, but you've heard of it, right?
Compartment Number 6 I've seen, yes.
Do you think any of those directors had I mean, compartment number 6 is kind of like a love story, but it's more about like not judging someone based on how they look or where they come from. Like you have the ugly-looking Russian guy is a nice guy, and the handsome-looking Finnish guy turns out to be a cold-hearted thief. So, do you like do you think that those movies like do you take any inspiration from like those movies, like when it comes to like setting your goals? Have you seen any of those?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Like, well, your main goal, the main goal for the movie Compartment Number 6 was teaching people how not to judge someone based on how they look or where they come from. That's at least my interpretation of it. What was, like, for this movie, it was kind of scatterbrained on what the main goal was. Like, what were you trying to teach? Were you trying to teach to be true to yourself? Were you trying to teach to, not let social stigma get to you? Were you trying to teach, like, what, in your opinion, was the main goal?
Okay, with the film, like what's my main statement, or I wouldn't personally use the word teach, but I do want to make my own political statement with this film, which is that, first of all, representation of girls way too often is girl as victim or girl as someone who is shamed, belittled, or patronized. And I'm personally sick of that narrative, and I think that that was like a really big sort of feminist political undercurrent for me in this film. Even if I don't think the film itself is preachy or wagging its finger, that was a really strong and important thing. And the other is say all the things that I just said, but replace the word girl with queer, because we also have that constant narrative of queer as victim, And also, even when we do positive stories of queer folk, we a lot of times spend time on figuring out how to deal with a problematic side of that life, whether it's like being tormented about it or coming out or the outside world having an issue with it. And heterosexual people don't understand what kind of privilege they have in the sense that they never have to deal with this crap. So basically, we just wanted to clean that up from this film and just concentrate on them as human beings who fall in love with each other.
I think that's one of the real highlights, the real strengths of the movie is it's so emotional. I felt, certainly, yes, we know that it's two girls who are falling in love and everything like that, but everything was just normal. Everything is just like, okay, well, this is how life is. You meet somebody, you feel something, she makes you cry, then you break up, then you get back together. I really do feel like your movie is the college version of my movie. My girls didn't even get a chance to go through any of that. They just were excited because they got to sleep together once. Oh my God, Ann Tedeschi, hi! There's somebody I know in the audience. It's so funny. Honey?
First of all, I really enjoyed the film, and I was thinking about how it's interesting you say that you didn't really spend time or maybe with people who are young kind of thing, because I have daughters who are in their early 20s, and this really made me think about how they have talked about how they're in a hookup culture world, and it's much easier for people. There's an expectation of just fucking or going home with someone, but it's actually incredibly difficult to do something like consider having a date or maybe kissing someone or getting to know someone. Like, intimacy is really not part of hookup culture. And it really struck me as very true to like what you're presenting. So I thought it was very contemporary to the experience that they talk about with me. And I also really appreciated that I was watching myself expect any number of disasters, because these are the tropes. The boys I thought were either going to be assholes or rape someone or try to do something dumb. I thought that one of the heterosexuals or lesbians would freak out on the other. And I appreciated that you showed the friendship between the girls as equally intimate and important as the love affair. So I thought all those things were nice, and also that the parents weren't homophobic. It was just kind of refreshing. But what was happening was that I was just watching these not stereotypes, but narratives come in and go look at that one. So it was interesting to me because it kind of showed me what I'm carrying from the history of cinema around, queer narratives.
Thank you.
Girls.
Thank you for that beautiful comment. That
people have said that in different countries to me, and there have been people who have not been able to relax throughout the movie because they are constantly waiting for that bad shit to happen. And they're like, I have to see it again just to like actually have a nice time with the film, you know? But it's funny and it's terrible that that's what we're conditioned to, and that's the narrative. That's yeah.
Yeah, you subverted all of those expectations and those tropes and that anxiety, of like, something bad's gonna happen.
And it's kind of weird to say, but this film, I believe, is radical by just being positive.
Correct.
Because if you look at it, you know, isn't that great? What does that say about our world? Like, if you look at it, there's not a single bad person there. Even the cop is nice to her, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know? And that's,
really is,
technically,
actually.
that's not supposed
That's
to
like a
happen in
Finnish
movies
film.
that you don't
Yeah,
have.
that's how you know it's finished, there's a gentleman right here, yes.
Yeah, I just want to say the actresses are all so good, and they're just so organic and natural. So how much were they very strict with the script, or did you give them a lot of room to like feel their characters or improvise?
Great question. They are really wonderful. I encourage them from day one to take ownership of their characters, challenge the text, challenge me, challenge any detail of representation, which they did, which is really great because then I could also make sure that it's contemporary because they are kind of like my contemporary fact checkers. They didn't rewrite the dialogue or anything. That's just the dialogue of the writers. But I encouraged them to make it their own. I told them they can always speak on top of each other, which is a big no-no in film, but I just really wanted it to be very realistic. I told them continuity, schmontinuity, you know, so it was like they got to really be quite free in front of the camera. And the camera method that we devised with my DP, Jarmo Kiuru, always put the actor in sort of the lead, so to speak. The actor was there, never there for the camera was always there for the actor. We did a 3-month rehearsal period.
Whoa.
Yeah, not every day, but over the course of 3 months we rehearsed a lot. All
Wait,
the
is
keys-
that because Finland helps filmmakers make movies?
Well, it's partly that, but it's also because when I'm in production, I don't really count the hours, and I ask other people in my artistic team to do the same, you know? Like, when I cast them, I wanted them to, like, actually, I think the actors were paid by hour, but, like, the other teams, not really. We just get one salary. And
I'm just telling you that the reason that's so wonderful is because when we did Two Girls, we also had rehearsal for like a month, but that's because we had no money and there was nothing else to do.
Right.
So it's like we're poor anyway, so we'll just go ahead and rehearse.
Yeah.
But that's fantastic. 3 months?
It's good because one of you mentioned that thing, it was your comment about the physical intimacy of close friends, for example. I think there's a very specific intimacy that adolescent girls have with each other, which I think is really beautiful. The way they can just like lie on top of each other or braid each other's hair and that kind of thing. But you can only get that if you're actually friends. So throughout that 3 months period, we also like became friends, and we talked about every single thing. We know each other, you know, we could trust each other. And there's so much intimacy in the movie that you can't act in those scenes. Like, you can't make a lovemaking scene unless you trust the other person. I mean, you can make it, but it doesn't come out good unless you really trust the people you're doing it with. So that 3 months was like necessary for that kind of trust to be built.
Also, somebody had to learn how to ice skate.
This is true. Yes, yeah, she's not a skater in real life.
Not a skater.
Yeah.
I know,
But
that's
but
what
the
I said.
pirouettes and the jumps are a stunt. Yeah, she doesn't do those. But just, you know, skating on ice like you look like a pro takes 3 months of practice. So, yeah, she
pretty
rehearsed very hard.
I love that part. I love that little detail. Other questions that you guys have? Comments? Yes? Sir, you already spoke, so I'm gonna go with this gentleman over here.
Just
Hi.
based on all of your sentiments, which I completely agree with, it felt so free and loose, like the camera was just kind of a fly on the wall. I'm curious, when you're in the audition room, or in this case, maybe with COVID, it might have been tapes, is there a quality that you look for with the actors that you're like, oh, they have this certain thing about them that I'm really drawn to for this project?
For sure, it's something that I might not even be able to put into words that I'm looking for, that it just feels right. It's like an intuitive thing. But I also really look for an understanding of dramaturgy.
I want storytellers, both sides of the camera. I don't want like an actor who just is interested in their character alone or the details of that character. I want them to be invested in the story and understanding the other characters and like how you play together with the story and the arcs of other characters too. So like COVID actually did hit Finland the week I started casting, so the first round was self-tapes, and I gave them a scene that had a turning point, and anybody who didn't do anything with the turning point, I realized, isn't reading the scene the way I want them to read. So that was like, like a...
What scene was it? Do you...
It was some generic scene, I don't remember.
It wasn't something from the script.
It was, but I think I changed
You
it or
changed
like
it, and you
comboed
put in
stuff and yeah.
Gave it a little turning point.
Yeah.
I gotta remember that, that's a good detail. Yes, sir.
I have only a comment. I saw two girls.
Wow,
In a
okay.
little repertory theater in the basement of Carnegie.
Oh, yes, that's right, it did play there.
And I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I am glad to be back today to house that for continuity.
Indeed, that's really nice.
And if there are some people who haven't seen Maria's film, you should. It's in streaming now, right? Yes.
Originally.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's really great, I love that, yeah, it's
Thank you.
full circle.
Thank you.
Girls and
Thank
girls,
you.
girls.
Exactly.
Yes.
I was just curious about the music. It fit really well with the vibe, and just sort of your thoughts on like, was it a part of the filming? Like, how do you think about incorporating music into your film?
Yeah, very early on I realized that I can't hear a score with this film. This was already in pre-production, so we hadn't shot a frame. And that I wanted pre-recorded music. And I wanted to work with a music supervisor because there was just so much music to find and it needed to be found early enough. So I hired a guy who I went to film school with who's a director and writer but also a music supervisor and just an annoyingly genius person. And he has a huge library of songs in his head. And also he's very good at finding songs that we could afford. Our budget was extremely modest, but I think the soundtrack sounds like we had $1 million, but you know, it only sounds that way. And so we went on to look for songs that would obviously reflect the teenage experience. That's the whole aesthetics of the film is based on trying to figure out what it feels like and specifically feels like to be a teenager, and that's where music is obviously a really big thing. I'm a sucker for like big music cues, you know, like stadium size emotions, but I've never had the guts to do it in film because, you know, you're always like, it's better to be like cool, you know, like a bit sarcastic, ironic, you know, but like with this film I was constantly reminding myself like, go toward big emotions. Like life isn't subtle, teenage life certainly isn't subtle, and teenage love isn't subtle. You know, so like anytime you're afraid that this is a bit too much, go for it. Like she skates with a heart-shaped outfit and the song is like everybody's heart's breaking now. That's way too much. But I think it's exactly right personally. So that was a really, really fun process. And Jan had, he had a really great idea. He suggested to me in the very first meeting, in this film, why don't we not hear any cis male voice? All the artists are LGBTQIA or female. And it's not to say I'm hating all men, you know, it's to say that they also have lots of arenas to, you know, display their music. But in this particular film, I thought the choice very appropriate.
Yes, hi.
I so loved the costuming. I just loved it. What were you I mean, it was like a treat, scene after scene. What were you thinking about? What were you going for? With your outfits?
Authenticity, basically, like that was a place where we did look at contemporary, like what people are wearing. And just character, you know. We did this, what I call costume play. We didn't just do so that the costume designer gets outfits, then we do fittings, and then we choose the perfect ones. That's like the generally, but we did instead, like the costume designer and makeup designer got together, filled a room at the production office with like a gazillion outfits and accessories and everything, and then we just played. All my cast came in,
And we tried on different looks, look after look after look, just looking for the habitus of these girls and sort of how they would feel. You know, like you see their whole like body movements change in different clothing and how they're like looking for the person they are. And they also had a lot to contribute there. You know, like they would come with Instagram photos of like bleached eyebrows and like what kind of haircuts and that kind of thing. Yeah.
So that's what Finnish teens are dressing like these days.
Yes, at least in this kind of high school. I think this is kind of like, you know, urban, liberal, politically aware, you know, so at least there. I don't know if you go to small town Finland if they would look as cool as this. But I think the key word there is collaboration. You know, that was kind of like the key word of the whole production, that we were listening to each other, and it was a conversation. It wasn't like, you know, like different departments somehow trying to work together, but like it was like this big mix of cake ingredients that then hopefully makes a cake in the end.
So you didn't do the benevolent dictator kind of role?
Well, I did, but I pretended that I wasn't doing it. No, I'm kidding.
No, it sounds like you really did create a real family around the process.
It's my favorite thing. That's the best thing about filmmaking is when you can do these artistic plans with your team. It's just so exciting. Yeah.
It really is.
It
It's
really
so
is.
true.
Yeah.
We have other questions. One last question. Oh, we got another blonde over here. Yes.
What's your next project?
It's a film that it's a period piece. 120 years into the past, another female-driven story. A woman inspired by a real character, gets taken to a mental institution in Finland on an island because she's difficult to deal with in society. Basically about the roles women have been fighting for, or you know, have been put into, and women trying to break through those roles. And this sounded really terrible. It's better than this. I don't have a pitch for it yet.
It's a crazy woman on an island,
She's
she's not really crazy.
Exactly, but it's not like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest either. It's more like, you know, there've been so few paths that women have been able to take in history, you know, and like she was like a woman who just tried to live an independent life and not like take one of those forced paths that was given to her. So the only thing that the society figured out what to do to her was say she's crazy, you know, and like put her in an institution. But it's not just depressing. It's like kind of
No, it
she's
sounds
like a big
hilarious.
hero.
It sounds hilarious.
Yeah, right.
I think it's gonna be great.
Downer.
Sorry.
No, I don't think that's a downer. That's not a downer ending at all, because you can see Allie, she's not at all a downer. You guys, thank you so much. I'm so thrilled that we got to be here and talk to you. And it's so exciting. I got to hear a lot of things about the movie because you guys asked such good questions. So
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you so
engaging.
much.
And
You're
thank you
welcome.
so much for coming to see it. I really appreciate it, truly.
One last question.
Thank you for
If possible, can I ask one last question? Are you aware this movie has a 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes?
I know, right?
Yeah, yeah.